Welcome to Porth Trecastell. That definitely was my first attempt at that. You may know it as Cable Bay. It's that bit behind there. This is, well, it's a small rocky inlet on the kind of, I suppose, the southwest coast of Anglesey. Anglesey's a weird shape. It's kind of a diamond shape, and we're along one of the long edges on the sort of the southern-ish coast. That's north. We're about an hour and a half after low tides, flood tide coming in, and it's a bit of a storm going on. My voice is breaking apparently, but we've got some fairly big waves coming in there. It shelves off really quickly here, so you're in deep water with a lot of fetch straight to shallow water here, so you get these huge waves rolling up and just rising up from the water and the energy that's already there. And we're doing a recce for a future event here around wild food and coastal stuff. So we're out here seeing what's here mid-August, and because I had the GoPro in my pocket, I thought, well, we'll take you along. And we haven't put a video up for a while, so here we are. So we've scrambled out along one side of the inlet fairly carefully to come and see what's out on this edge, but we're going to start turning around and heading back in the other way then. So we thought we might run through a few of the edible species that we've come across here and a few of the other weird and wonderful things, because we have spotted them already, so we'll show you them on the way back. But first we're going to head out that way, just onto that little shelf there. And yes, I know being on wet rocks near crashing waves is dangerous. We're on the uphill side and we are taking precautions, and this is basically what I spent my childhood doing, so
we risk assessed it, it's fine.
Yeah, I'm still alive. And that's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for rock pools that are fairly low down in the tidal range, and they're not exposed for that long, so they don't get the same bleaching and damage by UV light. They don't get rained on in the same way. So we find some interesting things there.
There's a lot of barnacles here.
A lot of barnacles. Helps with the grip. Yeah. So we're heading down here and then across, but we've got to be aware because that's the water line right there. That's a huge crashing wave. That is the water there, so this will get cut off within next half an hour or so, so we've got to be quick. So that's what we came out here for, this. So this is, I don't know, about 2 or 3 meters deep and about 5 meters across, but it is a proper, what is, as you said?
A living rock pool.
Yeah. Which means
not a dead one.
Yeah, because you get 2 types of rock pool really. Get the water off the lens. So you get the stuff that like this, which is salt water that's trapped and is part of the seabed for most of the tidal cycle. Yeah. But it's exposed out to daylight when the tide drops down to its lowest point. So it's only exposed for maybe 2 or 3 hours. Whereas rock pools further up the beach there, they're more like puddles that occasionally go underwater. So this water here is replenished by salt water. Well, it's being replenished right now as those waves come crashing in. But this is going to be underwater, and we're going to be about, I don't know, a metre underwater. The top of our heads will be in about 4 or 5 hours.
Definitely.
So these rock pools get replenished by salt water very, very quickly. They're not exposed to UV light from the sun for too many hours, and even though it is raining today, they don't get full of fresh water, and the fresh water is not good for the sea life that lives in there. And as foragers, well, you do more of the marine biology, I do more of the killing things and eating them. As a forager, I'm interested in the really healthy living things in there. So it's these kind of pools, which are more, they're wave pools more, aren't they? The rock
they
pools.
are, yeah, and they allow the wildlife that lives in them can kind of exchange with wildlife from the sea, as it were. So it's not just a trapped population in there that has to inbreed or die. As I said, some of the rock pools that you get further up the shore do get a little bit, it's almost like getting a stagnant pond, and they just, some things will still live there and thrive there, but a lot of the things that people go rock pooling for won't. They'll be,
well, a lot of what you find there are the things that live on the dead things.
Exactly, like the crabs and things like that, which will forage on the dead fish and things that'll get trapped and die.
Look at those. This is a good place to stand, right?
It is.
Yeah,
it's fine, it's fine. This is why going to the beach in summer is a little bit overrated. Like, this is our summer, to be fair, but on a really hot, still day when there's not much wind, there's not a lot to do at a beach. But if you come in this kind of weather, it's just the force that you bear witness to whilst you're here.
There's so much energy, isn't there?
There is. This is why British people like going to the coast in winter.
Yeah.
It's so cool.
I do love a big wave. I noticed everyone else has disappeared off the beach as well. The beach is completely devoid of people. There's just us two idiots.
I bet there'll be no cars left in the car park.
We have got an escape route. We're not just sort of trapped here doing a YouTube video and being idiots. We have got an escape route up there. We can get out onto the dry land fairly easily within probably less than a minute's warning, so we're okay, but we are going to try and scramble back along the low ground. But this kind of wave pool here on a calm day, not when it's blowing a hoolie like this, but on a calm day, this is the sort of place I'd come along with a small rod and just drop straight into the pool, because you do get some sizable fish trapped in pools like this. They get cut off at the low tide, and then they're kind of stuck in there for a few hours, and if you drop something tasty or interesting in there, then they might bite on it. Yeah, let's head back and let's go and find a few more things.
Look at all the winkles.
Smells a dead thing here.
Nice.
So you can see by the sort of the lichens, see the yellow stuff up there. That is just above sort of high water mark here, so, or at least since the last big storm.
There's some monster shrimp in this one.
Have we got shrimp? Behave. So by being the high water mark being just there, it means we are quite high in the tidal zone. So less likely to get cut off here. What have we got?
There's a prawn. You see this first open rock? There's a prawn on the top side of it. May not come through very well with the GoPro.
This is the problem. Prawns are almost invisible.
They are.
And they've got the reflection off the water. But this is the sort of place we'd come through here with a net and just scoop through with a fine net and try and gather things straight from the pool. Now, you wouldn't get a huge amount of food, but you would get some. We've got to get around that, haven't we? Because we need to go over that rock over there. This is exactly the sort of thing I was talking about for that bleaching of rock pools that are out of the water and are too far away from the low tide mark. See all this white stuff that looks like spaghetti? That should be bright green, and it's the remnants of a species called Ulva intestinalis, or gutweed. Very, very similar to the stuff that's crispy seaweed in Japanese restaurants and Japanese cuisine. But that should be green, and it's been killed off and bleached by UV light and fresh water. So this is a little pool of death, and to demonstrate that point further, there's a little dead crab in the pool of death. So just because it's a rock pool doesn't mean it's teeming with life. You've got to look at where that rock pool is in the tidal range. We haven't escaped very far yet.
No.
There, that green, that colour there, that's the colour that that should be.
Come on, elegance. What was it? 20 stone ballerina?
Yep, that's what I'm called.
That was what some people called him on a previous course that we held.
What have you found?
Sea glass.
Do you want to explain to the people at home what sea glass is?
It's glass that has it's broken up basically and then been bashed around in the sea. So it tends to get nice and rounded, it gets rid of all the sharp edges, and gives it a slightly cloudy finish as well normally. So this isn't an amazing example of it, but it is still sea glass.
And it's like it's been put in a polishing tumbler, hasn't
Exactly,
it?
it has. And people use it to make jewellery and artwork and things like that. They thread them, make them into beads and all sorts of things. So, yeah.
Sea glass.
Sea glass.
So that's the kind of thing you've got to watch out for. We walk through that gap there, where the green stuff is. You can see the wave has just come up to the edge of that now. And that's the kind of thing that could cut you off, or at least if you didn't want to go wading. Can you hold that while I go through? We are starting to look a bit like drowned rats. Happy drowned rats, but drowned rats nonetheless.
This is commencing through the last.
Yeah.
Kelp!
Oh, a bit of kelp. So there's kelp beds out there somewhere.
There is.
There must also have been
Crabs.
I think spider crabs.
Yes.
Been in the water a little while. I think these are from a few weeks ago. Yeah. And that
is definitely spider crab.
Spider crab carapace. I haven't seen spider crabs to handle for years, not since we moved up to North Wales. I mean, they're obviously here because, well, there's the debris of about 200 around my feet here, but I don't know, just haven't got out with a boat enough, or haven't borrowed Stu's boat, haven't gone out and gone snorkeling, and too busy working. Need to go and connect with the spider crabs again, maybe.
Your friend's the spider crab. That's a proper.
Oh, so talking about spider crabs and kelp, lots of kelp, but
Can we talk about kelp and then talk about spider crabs?
do you want to talk about kelp?
Just briefly.
Talk about kelp.
There's a few different types of kelp. I am very rusty on my identification, but this is one of them. I think this might be Pulmonaria digitata, possibly.
With the fingers.
Yeah, because it's like a hand, basically. But this is, so they're not plants, they're part of the algae family, but even that classification is a little bit iffy. But seaweed doesn't have roots or stems. It has a stipe, which is this bit that looks like a stem, and then at the bottom of that, where it attaches to the rock, it would have kind of almost like a grippy hand bit, which is like their version of a root, and it's called a holdfast, not a root. But kelp is amazing stuff.
Yeah.
It's really, really cool. It's used for so many different things, and it grows very fast. We did an experiment at university where we went to some kelp beds and we punched holes in the kelp at different parts up fronds, different points, and then we went back and we measured how much those holes had grown by to see how fast the kelp was growing, and it is quite impressive, I have to say.
So the holes spreading apart?
Yes.
Yeah, so the holes were getting further and further apart.
Yeah, and they got bigger as well. They're like elongated. So it's cool stuff. Yeah, massive kelp beds, and you can imagine that in the water with loads of other kelp, just making a forest of fronds.
Wafting back and forth. There's water inside this GoPro, that's probably not a good thing.
Oh no.
It's in the lens there. Yeah. Our next foraging mission is up there, because there's something we are going to harvest now and take for tea. But before we get there, let's have a look at the graveyard of spider crabs. So this is a strand line. This is the upper level of the tide, and there's a slope going away down there, down to the water there. And then anything that floats, like bits of seaweed and driftwood and things like that, will come up here. Something else that floats are the shells of spider crabs.
Oh wow, look at this one. So that's where its eyes are.
They're tucked right back down there.
Yeah.
And there is.
Because that's an intact upper carapace, a dorsal carapace.
Yeah. And they are
So
freaky
weird.
spider crabs.
Or just molting as well.
Could be molts.
Could be molts.
Where they are, because crabs are basically insects that are underwater.
Yes.
They get rid of their outer shell and then push out, and they grow by developing a new shell underneath that and then pushing out of the old shell and then scuttling off with a softer shell, and then that shell gradually hardens.
Yep.
It's about right, isn't it, marine
Yes, it is.
zoologist? So, yeah, a strand line.
What happened?
Just dropped the GoPro. A strand line of spider crab carapace debris, which, yeah, it's probably from a molt session post mating, but
Yeah.
yeah,
I mean, we're in
not
summer
a
now.
battle between the spider crabs and another mortal enemy.
No, I don't think so. Sadly. That would make a good story though.
It would make a good story. I want that
Okay.
stuff.
Okay.
So
Go get it then.
me? All right, fine. Straight into the pile of spider crab.
Woohoo!
Well, this is, it's in my pouch, rock samphire. So if you've been on our coastal foraging courses, you've seen me talk about this, and this is the one. If you go to the, if you do the 2-hour course, this is the one that's on that tiny little rock on the sandy bit of the beach. But this is, well, the Latin name is Crithmum maritimum, and this is a strange plant. It has flowers that look a bit like kind of a soft greeny yellow cow parsley. It has an umbellifer type flower like that, but then the leaves are, they're almost like little seed pods, they look like, or pea pods, but they are quite chunky and succulent, and they have a taste that somebody said it's like kerosene type taste almost, but salty as well. So this is really good steamed, and it's good steamed with fish. So I've gathered a load here that we're going to have for tea tonight.
Ooh.
If you do come for a meal at our house, there's a good chance that part of that meal has lived in my pocket for some time, at least 2 or 3 hours.
We do wash his clothes though, don't worry.
We can talk about that. That is the Boca Outdoorsman Mini, which is a knife we were sent for review, and it's going to be on the Gear Review channel, which is a separate channel now. But this is a stainless steel fixed blade knife in a Kydex sheath, and it's not the most expensive knife in the world. I think it's less than £40, but it's the right size for my massive chunky hand, and it's very, very strong. This is the thing I've been using to open oysters and prize limpets off rocks, and I'll probably go and do that in a moment. But this is a very, very solid blade, and that edge is surprisingly resilient. We haven't tried to take it to the stone for the first time. We haven't tried sharpening it yet, and we'll see how well it goes, because it is stainless steel, but it's Sandvik 12C067 or something like that, which is meant to be a stainless steel you can sharpen, so we'll see how that goes. Okay, I'm delicately trying to come in to do limpets. So, all sorts of things. We've got some common periwinkles here, which are edible, quite good. I think I might make Amy do those. But I'm going to get back up there, Periwinkle. Oh, live there. Live down there. That's better. I want to talk about these things. So these are limpets, common limpets. The Latin name is Patella vulgata, and patella as in kneecap, same sort of shape. And you can, when you take out the flesh of a limpet and you're left with the shell that's behind, you can kind of see why that is. They're interesting. They're easy to catch because they don't run away from you, but they do move. and they do move away from where you see them at low tide like this. When the water comes back in and covers these rocks, these will scuttle around like one of those robotic vacuum cleaners, and they'll go off and eat the biofilm, this sort of algae vegetative substance that lives on the rocks here. So they'll graze on that. They are herbivores, but they have a home point, just like a robotic vacuum cleaner. They have a point that they go back to, and the shape of the shell, the edge of the shell, is exactly shaped to match that bit of rock with the limpet sitting there in that orientation. So they have to go back to that same point again and again, and they grind the shells down to make the shells the shape of that bit of rock. So when you come along to them like this, they will sense your approach, and if you come up to them quietly and then give them a wiggle, they will wiggle and then lock down. So if you come in a bit closer, we'll see if we can see this. This is probably going to wiggle and then go rock solid. Moves a bit, yeah, then gets really solid. I can almost use that as a climbing hold. So that's there. But if I take a knife and get it just under the edge of that shell, break the seal, and you have the limpet. And then you have two different layers. You have this flesh around the outside and then this foot bit underneath. And here you can see these two black things. That's part of the sort of the mouth, the head end of the limpet. That's a bit of the shell that broke off, but I can safely put this limpet back there and it will live there quite happily. It will just grind itself down again. So all of this bit inside is edible. The way we cook them is we boil them up whole and then scoop out the flesh with a spoon and then use that flesh, that cooked flesh, in something else, whether we liquidize it and make it into some sort of soup or sauce, or put it into some sort of savoury rice dish or something like that. Damien, did you fall off the rock then? Maybe. Bit. So you can see here that mark of slightly discoloured rock. That's different to this bit here. That's where the limpet was living, and I'm going to try and put it back there in the same orientation and put it back there. Give it a few seconds. And give it a little while to attach itself. I probably scared it into submission. Oh, you have to take my word for it. They'll go back on. They will attach back on. So you can take them off and have a look at them, but put them back in the same place in the same orientation. Otherwise you increase its risk of dying. But that limpet should go back on. I feel bad now because it hasn't actually gone back on, but it will do it. I've done this thousands of times. It will go back on. Right, do you want to do periwinkles? So here we have an absolute horde of periwinkles. There are also some other look-alike creatures in amongst, but periwinkles are these little ones. As I say, there are some look-alikes. We'll try and find some of those in a moment. We will, yeah. So periwinkles, or Littorina littorea, they're not snails, but they are gastropods, which means that they have this one foot and they use their foot to eat. Gastropod, I think, means mouth foot, basically. Yep. So periwinkles are really cool. Like the limpets, they graze on the biofilm. They don't have a home marker. They have other ways of keeping themselves from drying out when they're not submerged by the sea. So that's the reason that limpets go there and suck down. It's so that they don't lose moisture. So periwinkles have this little flap, which is called an operculum. It's like a little trap door that it pulls closed over itself, so that it stops predators, or it's one of the defenses it has against predators, and B, it stops it from desiccating, from drying out because of the sun trying to suck the moisture out. So at low tide, these will be found just openly on rocks, but they won't be active, same as the limpets. They'll just be stuck onto the rock and holding their position until the water comes up again. And they're really good eating. You wouldn't think it, but they are. And you can go and you can gather a bucket full of these very quickly, very easily. You saw that, unlike Richard with his knife, I just had to go along and pick it off the rock. That's as technical as it gets. They're
have this round opening on the shell. So a similar species is the dog whelk.
None on this bit.
There's none here.
Some over there I saw earlier.
I saw dog whelks earlier, but dog whelks, oh, this one's coming out of its shell.
So they start to unfold. It kind of, that white bit there, that's the foot, that's the bit, so it actually
so it comes out of the shell,
yeah,
and then it starts to move. So dog whelks have a little channel in their opening, which is one of the ways you tell them apart. And there are other things like top shells which look similar, but they have a very different shell. So periwinkles, the way to eat those is to throw them into a pan of, or put them into a pan of boiling water for about 5 to 7 minutes, and then to strain them out with a colander and use something like a cocktail stick or one of those special snail forks, if you have such a thing, to twist them out of the shell, and then discard the stomach, which is at the top end of it, and dip it into something like soy sauce or sweet chili sauce and just eat them as they are. You can also fling them into stir fries and things like that, but we quite often just eat them that way, and we'll have them alongside other things like a paella or something like that.
Yeah, some sort of one pan dish.
Yeah.
Right.
Cool. Let's go see what else is around.
See?
Yay!
See? I told you it'd stick back. Some of you doubted me, didn't you? He's harming wildlife again.
I'm gonna go this way because I'm following one.
Oh god. Yeah, I wore the wrong shoes. I mean, they're good shoes, but they're not the best for deep water. Well, not if you want to keep dry feet anyway. Agile like a fox. And that bit there, that's the bit of beach we came in on. So we have been cut off very, very slightly. But I'm sure we'll cope. I'm looking for dog whelks.
Don't know.
Over this way, I think.
They are over
yeah.
there, yeah. There are some monster limpets.
Yeah, it's a good beach for limpets. Aha!
Yes.
Dog whelk.
And here.
Yeah.
So I'll take this one off if I can.
Angry dog whelk.
So you see, this is the groove that I was talking about here.
That little groove there.
That. So dog whelks have that because dog whelks are predators. So what they do is they will go along and sit on top of a limpet like that, and they'll basically drill a hole in the top of the limpet shell with a kind of hard tooth that they have, drill a hole into it, and then they squirt. That one won't. No, it's fine, it's fine. They drill a hole into the top of the shell, so they do this to limpets, mussels, periwinkles, whatever they can, mostly the more sedentary things, so limpets and mussels. Drill a hole, squirt in stomach acids, and then once it's sort of dissolved everything inside to a bit of a mush, they then suck it out the top.
Yeah.
And that's how they feed.
Pretty gruesome, but pretty cool. Cool as well.
Yes, very.
Yeah.
So put that one back roughly in the same area it came from.
Yeah, we'll try and get out of here.
Yeah.
So now do we dodge across in between the waves, or do I play it safe and go around here? So I think that's probably it. We got, well, the battery is going down very fast rate now, so I think that's us done. So
Cheers.
thank you for watching if you did watch, and we'll see you again next time, and the video will be better then on the proper camera, not the GoPro.
Yep.
Bye.
It will. See ya.